Hey everyone, today on the Just Hyke Podcast, we're joined by Belinda Coker. Belinda is an Aussie with New Zealand roots who rediscovered her love for the wild after lacing up hiking boots for the first time in 25 years. She swapped business trips for wilderness journeys and now inspires people to reconnect with nature, themselves, and the joy that lives just beyond the comfort zone. Hey Belinda, first, tell us, for people who don't know who you are, I know that website is called Soul Shredder. And so I
Yeah.
want you to tell me about the website and tell me about your mission and your purpose and who you are.
Okay, so my name is Belinda, and I grew up hiking in New Zealand. And then when I was about 21, I hung up my hiking boots and entered into married life, corporate life, parenthood, all that kind of thing. And then in my midlife, I decided I took a good long hard look in the mirror and I thought, you really need to get some adventure back into you. I was wearing all sorts of hats, every other hat, but not a Belinda hat, mother hat, corporate hat, or any, I was doing everything for everybody else. And it wasn't until I went out and bought my first pair of hiking boots in 35 years and got back on the trail that I realized how therapeutic hiking is. Not only is it's therapeutic for you psychologically and physiology, I really do believe that hiking is an endurance sport and you really need to work every part of your body. And not only that, but the very first hike that I went on after this whole midlife crisis I had was in the rainforest in the hinterland in Queensland, southeast Queensland. Is emerald green. It's something you would see on Avatar. It
Right.
really is absolutely beautiful. And I just came off that hike going, oh my gosh, I cannot believe how good I feel. And so I've taken it on to help other people understand the benefits and help people understand how to hike sustainably and safely. Okay, so
Absolutely.
that's one of my big things is safety.
There's
Yeah.
knowing the essentials, knowing to
Mm.
carry a headlamp,
Yeah.
understanding distance,
Yeah.
understanding kind of what your capabilities are. And
Yeah.
then there's, of course, awareness. Where are you walking into? What are you getting yourself into? There's so many
Absolutely.
different levels to that safety and awareness.
And I think I sent you a message before. Something else I really did want to touch on is hiking has gained in popularity over the last few years,
Mhm.
especially with social media. And social media shows beautiful hikes in the Dolomites and the Tour de Mont Blanc and the O Circuit or New Zealand, anywhere. They
Mhm.
just show these beautiful images. And young, sexy backpackers running around with their ultralight gear looking fabulous, but it doesn't show the true reality of what can go wrong if you are ill prepared or if you're attempting to do a hike which you're not really capable of doing. And that to me is a huge issue. And we have a look on our Facebook feed, and there are more and more search and rescue operations every year. They are just increasing at a scary rate.
That's interesting. I love that you brought that up.
Mm.
It was interesting on one of the Facebook pages after you sent me that message and posed that topic for us for
Yeah.
today.
Mm.
I was looking at one of the Kilimanjaro pages, and this gentleman posted on there, arms raised up, woohoo, I did it. I'm at the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. He's taking a picture
Yeah.
beside the sign, and in big bold letters, he says, no training, no preparation. And it's, are you kidding me? Like, you're going to get somebody killed.
Yeah.
He got such a backlash. And then he went back and he reposted a
Mm.
little bit of an editorial for that. When I went and I looked at his specific Facebook page for his profile,
Yeah.
and he regularly like lives at high altitude. And he goes to Nepal and he's been to various different places doing this high altitude research. And it's okay, no training, no preparation. That's just BS right off the
Yeah.
top because he's
Yeah.
he's living a life of training, right? Like his daily life is staying fit and active.
Yeah, I know. It's there's a lot of confusing messages which come out.
Yes.
But the other thing that scares me is people will be going to do a hike in Nepal. Okay, I'm going to go for my first hike. Asking a whole group of strangers on Facebook, what kind of hiking boots should I buy? I mean, it's just it's and you see it again, and I think good on them for wanting to do a great hike like that. And a lot of those hikes, just to be clear, a lot of those hikes do have tours, so you are looked after. But I do think that a lot of people think that these are very easy hikes, and they're not. And a really good example is the Lycian Way, which is a hike in southern Turkey. So Time Out magazine in London just did a huge article on the Lycian Way. It's the most beautiful hike in the world. So this article has been washed, rinsed and repeated again and again by anybody who wants to share it. So all of a sudden on the Facebook feeds, you're getting a lot of people saying, I've just done the Camino. I'm going to do the Lycée next. That has got some gnarly technical ascents and descents, and the Camino is it's not technical in any way, shape, or
Right.
form. And I would be really concerned about Turkey's search and rescue capabilities, especially in that area. It's not an official walk, the Lycian Way. It's just one that somebody's just made up. So,
Wow.
and it's stuff like that which really does concern me. They had a death. I think they might have had two deaths on the Lycian Way last year, late
Wow.
last year. Yeah,
Yeah.
last autumn, fall.
So even in the US here, there's deaths every year on at different national parks
Mhm.
or on different trails for
Yeah.
different reasons. I know there was one lady, I believe she was with a group. They
Yeah.
were out at, I think it was Glacier National
Yeah.
Park, and she looked at her cell phone or she was taking a picture and she took a couple of steps, she tripped and then fell. So just not paying attention. And there's lots of people on the trail, and we're getting overuse issues, maybe like
Yeah. Yeah.
erosion and crowd control. And how do you enjoy nature when you have a crowd of 25 people around you? We have to, what are we getting into? Where are we going? What kind of hike is it? What is the difficulty rating? Have I done more than 3,000 steps in a day?
Yeah. And accidents can happen. I was on the Kungsleden last year and I stepped off a bridge, and this is quite a flat hike. I think the highest climb you do in a day is like maybe 400 meters. It's not much. And I was walking off a bridge and I saw a reindeer and I went, oh, look, there's a reindeer. And I slipped off and I
Yeah.
sprained my ankle really badly.
Yep.
So accidents can and do happen. And so
Absolutely.
many people just have got no idea. And I think we'll talk later about something that I got into, which experienced people, as an experienced hiker, I think, oh, it'll never happen to me.
Why don't we, you know what? Since you brought it up, why don't we go into what happened to you? So I
Okay.
know, yeah, I'll let you tell the story. Start from the beginning.
Okay, so we'll talk about I was on the Canary Islands. So I was doing the Canary Island hike. Now, the Canary Islands are an autonomous group of islands just off the coast of Western Sahara. Shall I tell you about the Canary Island hike before I tell you about what happened? Yes,
Yes.
okay.
Yes,
Okay.
because I'm not familiar with the Canary Island
Mm,
hike. So yes,
right.
please start with
Okay.
that.
Okay, so it's an amazing hike. It is the Canary Islands. It's a group of seven islands owned by Spain, but autonomous and just off the coast of Western Sahara. So popular holiday destination for lots of British, lots of Germans, and during the winter and in the summer, all the Spaniards go there. But they do tend to stick to all the beaches around the outside. There are seven islands, and 5 of them are mini volcanoes. So the highest would be 1,500 meters, 5,000 feet, and going up to 12,200 feet, which is the highest mountain in Spain, so the
Wow.
highest mountain
Yeah.
on these little islands. And they're all shaped like mini volcanoes, and they've all got this little cloud cover just sitting on the top like a little party hat.
Oh,
They're
cute.
really cute. And but they're quite small. Like some of these hikes to go over each mountain can take 5 days maximum, 4 5 days. A couple of them are only 2 days. Fantastic hike. There's not some of them are quite dry, and you do have to dry camp a lot, so you do have to carry water. And there's some steep ascents, steep descents, because you literally go up one side of the mountain on and come back down on the other. But absolutely amazing. One of them, El Hero, has actually got a tree that produces water from the leaves.
Oh, wow.
It really, like, the flora and fauna is really amazing, and you can wild camp anywhere there.
Oh, beautiful.
Wild camping or dispersed camping isn't generally allowed in Europe, apart from Scandinavia, and so you can wild camp there. Really beautiful, cheap food, cheap wine. It's everything you can love about Spain. It's on these islands. So I was on island number 3 or 4, and which is called Tenerife, and I had only climbed up about 1,600 meters, which is about 5,000 feet, and Mount Tene sits at 12,000 feet. So this is the highest mountain. So I was nowhere near getting even to the top. I was on the getting up to the main hiking route. And I got to a bit of cloud cover, and I thought, oh yeah, that's normal. They've all got cloud cover on. And I'd looked at my map, the weather report as before I set off, and it was all sun, brilliant sun. And I thought, okay, there's nothing really to concern. And about half an hour later, it began to rain. And then I felt the temperature drop. I actually
Mm.
felt it drop. It dropped to 2 degrees Celsius, which is about
Wow.
35 Fahrenheit. And
Yeah.
it probably dropped about 10 degrees Celsius, so whatever that is in Fahrenheit. It was, and I actually felt it.
Right.
Australians will know what I'm talking about. But, you know, you go,
Like you're walking into the cold section at the grocery store.
no, these are big
Big.
refrigerator. You actually go into, I think Costco has got that refrigerated,
Yeah,
you
I
know.
think so.
So,
Yeah.
but in Australia, sometimes in really hot places, you actually go into the bottle shop and go and hang in the bare
Yeah.
fridge just to cool down
Wow.
sometimes.
Yeah.
It actually felt like I was walking into a very large refrigerator.
Wow.
And I was pretty much drenched at this point. I had a rain jacket. It wasn't my heavy duty rain jacket that I would have taken on say, a Scandinavian hike. And I got up to the main junction, and I was looking at the map, and I couldn't understand what the map was saying. And then I said, I think I'll walk down and see if I can get some shelter. I thought, no, I won't. Oh, no. And I suddenly realized, oh my God, you're confused.
Oh no.
And I went, oh.
Were
And
you
they,
alone? Were you
yes,
hiking
yeah,
solo? Okay.
I
Yeah.
was. And I suddenly started to shiver in my core. And it's a violent shiver. And it was
Uh-oh.
just like, oh, this is really bad. Now, within quite dense cloud cover, and I wasn't sure about the Canary Islands search and rescue capabilities. So I knew, okay, I can push the SOS button on my Garmin, but what could happen? Yes, I could get rescued, but there's a good chance I can't. And the other thing is my electronics failed. Where you're in cloud or constant rain, your electronics fail. You can look at the screen, but your hand just slips over it. It doesn't, your touch screen
Doesn't register.
and so I managed to get it dry enough to see a map, and I always note where my exit points could possibly be. So that's something that I always do before a trip. And I knew that there was a road pretty close, and I had a look and I could see where I was. No, I didn't have a paper map. Yes, I had a compass. No, I didn't have a paper map. What I tell everyone to do all the time.
Darn, I wish I had a paper map.
I know this is embarrassing. And I could tell that I was very close to the road, and I was probably about half a kilometre, but it was overland. It wasn't on a trail, it was overland. I was half a kilometre, which is only about a third of a mile, so it's not really that far. But I also knew that I would be losing heat 4 times faster than I was able to produce it. So I knew that I was in a danger zone. Anyway, so I don't know, I got this mama bear sort of thing that I've got to do. And I just went for it. And I got to the road and I was just like, oh my God. And there was no reception. It's not like there was a bus stop. There was no one around. And I stuck my thumb out for the first couple of cars went past. And I thought, okay, I am going to have to push the SOS button. And then two French people picked me up and took me down to a town where
Oh, good.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have even made myself a cup of tea because I was cold soaking the whole trip. So
Wow. Yeah. Your fingers just don't work and you're kind of,
no,
yeah. Yeah.
nothing worked. But yeah, when you start getting disorientated, and I noticed that I got disorientated and I couldn't make my mind up. Do I go this way? Do I go that way? And it really was quite scary.
Well,
That
good for you for
scary. Yeah.
recognizing where
Yeah.
you were, like
Mm.
mentally, because you could have been a little bit further gone and
Yeah.
not had that awareness. So good for you
Yeah.
for having that awareness.
Yeah.
Would you recommend someone pushing that SOS button a little bit sooner?
I probably would.
Maybe.
Look, if I were in a country, a more developed country,
Hmm.
would absolutely I would.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have been in some undeveloped countries before where hiking is not, it's not in their culture, and I had concerns about whether or
Hmm.
not I would get rescued. And if I wasn't going to get rescued, then that would be very dangerous, especially with the cloud cover. Sometimes they say we can. I was quite close to the road though, so I might have been rescued, but how long would that take?
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
think I probably had another hour and I would have been gone.
Wow. You were able to make it out to a road
Yeah.
and you were able to catch a ride and get into town and get a cup of
Yeah.
tea.
If I hadn't been close to the road, I would have definitely have pushed the SOS.
Yeah.
But I knew that the road was somewhere when I set out, that the trail was actually
Yeah.
going.
And I think too, I think it's a lesson in when we go on these hikes, there's a certain amount of self-rescue that's gonna have to
Yeah.
happen,
Yeah, absolutely.
depending on whether you trip and fall and you hurt your shoulder or you maybe break an arm or break a
Yeah.
leg, whatever it is, sprain
Yeah.
an ankle. You have to be able to get yourself from point A to point B to
Yeah.
be able to be rescued
Yeah.
because not everywhere is
Absolutely.
accessible. You can't just sit
Yeah.
there and wait for someone to show up.
Yeah, and that's exactly right.
Yeah.
Not everywhere is accessible, and if it's really bad weather or it's cloudy
Right.
or foggy, helicopters can't land in the fog, and they will not. It was an eye opener.
So what would you do differently next time?
Paper map, yes, definitely a paper map. Probably take something a little bit more waterproof. I had a pretty
Mhm.
good
Yeah,
jacket, but you know how easy it is for jackets to wet out.
for sure.
Yeah,
We don't really have that issue where I live. I'm in Houston area, just north of Houston
right.
in Texas, and
Hmm.
we're very humid here, but we
Right,
don't when we get downpours, we get like massive
right.
downpours, and we usually know that they're coming in.
Yeah,
And you
yeah,
like they're so intense, you seek shelter.
yeah, yeah,
But if you're out in the
absolutely.
woods, then
Yeah.
probably find a tree to
Yeah.
hide under.
Yeah.
What about like one of those silver blankets? One of those silver, do you carry one of those with you? Like
I
an
do.
emergency bivy or
Yeah. Yes,
did
I
you pull
do.
that out?
So I had actually used it 2 nights earlier
Okay.
to keep myself warm,
Yeah.
and I had looked at it and I've gone, oh my God, the silver's no longer on there. So your emergency blanket cannot just sit in your pack for 2 years.
Oh, it
They
deteriorates.
start to deteriorate.
Interesting.
And so I had pulled it out a couple of nights earlier when I was on another island, and it got quite cold at night. And so
Sure.
I thought, okay, I pulled it out
Yeah.
and it wasn't silver anymore.
Really? It was just a
Yeah,
clear
it was,
plastic sheet.
it was just basically a piece of plastic.
Wow.
Yeah, that was an eye opener actually. I must have got damp at some stage, and yeah, so that's
Interesting.
something else. So
Okay.
now in my kit, in my home kit that I pull from, I've done an order of 10 emergency blankets and
Right. Yes.
just replace them. And that's another thing. I'm always quite good about checking all my gear. And that's just one thing. We go, oh, we've got an emergency blanket, great. And we just don't think about it. So
I never thought about it having an expiration date,
yeah,
or it'll
yeah,
deteriorate depending on
yeah,
maybe the conditions that it's stored in. I'm going to
yeah,
have to look into that a little bit more. I'll do a little bit of research on that and see storage conditions and expiration
yeah.
dates and stuff. Now, tell me about your website. It's called Soul Treader. Tell me about
Yeah.
that.
Okay, so it started off as something fun to do. And I thought, oh, write about my hikes and it'd be great and tell people about what I'm doing. And then I started to really get into the safety and the health aspect and just writing a post about, I went to America, I went into the Tahoe Rim Trail. And like all Australians, we pack our snake bandages. And I ended up finding out American snakes and Australian snakes are completely different. So our snakes bite into the lymphatic system, and pit vipers, or the vipers, which the predominant snake in America, bite into your bloodstream. And the venom is different as well, and what the venom how the venom affects your body is different. So in Australia we use a pressurized bandage system to manage our snake bites, bite into your bloodstream. And the venom is different as well. And what the how the venom affects your body is different. So there are actually 5 different types of venom. And so in Australia, we use a pressurized bandage system to manage our snake bites. And most Australian hikers, they know how to manage a snake bite and they know what to do, and they carry their snake bandages. If you did that with a pit viper bite, you would probably lose that limb.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, and if you treated an Australian snake bite like you do in America, you would probably die.
And I've
And
heard the snakes in Australia are very deadly.
they are, but they're quite timid. There's a couple that aren't. There's a couple that are quite fierce. There's actually a snake called the fierce snake. And it depends what season it is. During mating season, they get a bit sort of, you know,
Friskier.
yeah. And then you've got when they've had their babies, juvenile snakes are sometimes the worst because they don't know how to control their bite, and they just they're like little toddlers go bite. But whereas an older snake, they're not going to waste their precious venom on you because why?
As you walk by.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you walk by, because you're not food unless you're a threat to them.
You started that to share information, safety tips.
Yeah.
Do you have a book out?
I do. So I have a book which is basically a free resource on my
Oh, okay.
site called Hike It. It's Health, Safety, and Hygiene on the Trail. So I go right into health, all sorts of things, heat and cold related illnesses, hydration, all sorts of things like that. And then, of course, all the safety aspects that we've been discussing so far. And hygiene, things like how to toilet properly. And I even have a chapter on how to use hand sanitizer properly because so many people just go bit of a wipe and just air dry it, and that's not actually how it works. And hand sanitizer is a hiker's best friend. It really is. And of course we need to wash our hands with soap and water when we can, but when you are on the trail, there are some times when you cannot wash your hands with soap and water. Hand sanitizer is so important. And it's amazing the number of gastro illnesses which happen on trails, and whole parts of trails need to be closed down at some stage. It happened on a couple of years ago. It happened on the Kungsleden. I know it's happened on the Overland a couple of times, and you'll get this sort of wave of sickness coming through. I don't think it happens so much in North America because the type of hiking you do there is different from what what the type of hiking we have in Europe, hut to hut and in hiking.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I
And
understand.
yeah,
Yeah.
the overland, there is one hike in Australia which has huts, all the other hikes don't. And when you do have huts and you do have toilets, and
Gotcha.
that's when you get people touching door handles, all sorts of things. And then people go and touch door handles and they don't wash their hands properly afterwards, or then they just go and food and all that. And that's when everything turns to custard.
So I'm glad you clarified that because it was like I'm thinking hiking, how is that, how is it more prevalent on other trails? But that makes perfect sense. If you're
Yeah,
going from hut to hut, then
yeah,
you're touching door handles, you're using
yeah,
toiletry. Yeah, that makes perfect
yeah,
sense. Yeah, definitely something to watch out for. Especially we mentioned the Camino earlier, probably the same issue on the
yeah,
Camino, going
yeah,
from hut to hut. Same issue even on almost think of it like a cruise ship
yeah,
where you're sharing, there's so many people
yeah,
sharing the same
yeah.
facilities. So tell me, how did you get into multi-day hiking?
Back when I was having my midlife crisis and I decided to go out and buy a new pair of hiking boots, I really got into it. I went and did a wilderness first aid course and all sorts of things. And when you first get excited about something, suddenly your Facebook feed is, you've got all these groups and I got so inspired by other people. And it was during the pandemic, so we were in lockdown. Our state was quite free and easy, and we could travel to Tasmania and certain parts of Australia. So I decided, okay, I am going to go on a multi-day hike. So I thought, wonderful. So I went out and I bought a tent and a pack and a little jet boil. And I had all the gear for some reason. You know how everyone got really excited during lockdown and bought all sorts of things. I bought hiking gear. And I actually went on this first hike. It was a great hike as a first hike. It was called the Great Ocean Walk, which runs along the southern coast of Victoria in Australia. And it runs along the coastline, and it is just magnificent. Beautiful crashing waves, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous scenery, dangerous beaches. It's not the kind of hike that you zip down for a swim. There's a couple of beaches you can, but the beaches are called things like Wreck Bay, and there's shipwrecks and all sorts of things happening
Is
on there.
that why it's dangerous? Because it's crashing very
Yeah,
powerful waves?
yeah,
Okay.
sneaker waves and all that kind of thing. Anyway, that's so I went on that. And I didn't even do a shakedown of my gear before I went. And I put my tent up the very first night, and that had dedicated campsites along the trail. So dedicated campsites. And I put my tent up, and I think I got the guy in the shop to show me how to work my jet bowl.
That's
Made, made,
awesome.
made, made my dehydrated meal, and sat down, and I really felt like the kid on a first day at school, and I was so proud of myself. And I can remember I knew how to work a water filter, and because I'd on day hikes before I'd used a water filter, but I'd never actually filtered green water and it came out clear. And I can remember doing it, but it really was amazing. It was the great thing about this hike is that each campsite has a shelter that is just used for, like, you don't sleep in the shelter. It's got this big wooden table, and everyone, I think it's capped at about 8 to 10 campsites a night. So there's not a lot of other people. So you get to know the cohort that you started the hike with, because you can only
Hmm.
go in one direction. And I got to know these other people, and there were a lot of other folk on that trail who'd done a lot of hikes, and I got really excited. And I can just remember that sitting there, and they would, you know how hikers talk, they talk about hikes, they talk about gear, and I just soaked it all up like a sponge. And that really was my perfect first hike. It really was. It was a 6 day hike. It wasn't overly long. It wasn't so short that I really did have to push myself in some parts. And it was just magnificent. Yeah.
Beautiful.
It
That would be,
was.
that's
It
in
was.
Victoria and
Victoria in
in
Australia. Yeah.
Australia. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned filtering water and you were excited about green water. turning clear so that you could
Yeah.
drink it.
It was actually from a water tank. So
Oh, okay.
there was a water tank that was there that was run off from one of these shelters. So it probably had some algae in it, which was
Oh,
making it.
gotcha. So you turned 60 on the trail, is that right? Tell me about that.
Yes, I did. I turned 60 on the Lycian Way in Turkey.
Oh, really? The one that we were talking
Yes,
about at the
yes,
beginning.
yes, at the end of last year.
Wow.
It was great. It really was. And I have a photo of the tent just sitting on the cliff, what over this beautiful sunset. And I was with my partner and we had wine and cheese and it was just beautiful. I was in a really beautiful spot.
Was it well marked?
No, and there were a lot of places where it was just cairns which were marking the trail. And because it's not an official trail, it's got all sorts of, you're following a lot of these trails, these GPS
Tracks.
apps
Okay.
where every man and his dog is giving a different sort of option of how to get across this ravine or up this mountain. And so it was quite. Yeah, there was not it wasn't waymarked in it very well at all. There are some rudimentary sort of signs here and there.
So, what
Yes.
message would you give to women who maybe felt left behind or they're really ready to get started?
So the very first day hike that I went on after I had my little meltdown in my midlife was through a meetup group. And I was the youngest. At 55, I was the youngest.
Wow, that's great.
And and all the other people on that group were in their 70s and 80s. And they were as fit as a fiddle and they were glowing. And I looked at them and I thought, I want to be that person. So, what I'm trying to say is something like hiking, it can be as strenuous or as easy as you want it to be.
Agreed.
And every single muscle, especially when you're negotiating paths and routes and stones, your whole body is constantly moving and shifting. So it's a great way to start moving your entire body. It's actually healthier than if you are walking a suburban pavement, doing
Hmm.
this repetitive step, the repetitive movement. So I think what I want to say to anybody who's thinking about getting started and they're just going, I'm 60, am I too late? Or I'm 70, am I too late? As long as you do have you can move unaided, there is a nature path somewhere for you. And just baby steps, start off with an easy nature hike and then just increase the difficulty if you can, or if you feel that you are capable. In a lot of places, and I'm not sure if that's the same for America, but I know Australia, New Zealand, tracks are graded. And so we have a really good grading system where it goes from one, and that wheelchairs and strollers can go on one. And then you've got two, and grade two, and that will go up to a certain distance and the path might be loose stones or there might be steps. So you can look at the grading of a trail to know whether or not that's going to be for you. And just say, if you're just starting out, just say, I'm just going to walk an hour. And so put a timer on your phone. And if you're only going to walk an hour, after half an hour, turn back. And so you're not tired, because when you do get tired, that's when you can stumble and make mistakes. You are using every muscle in your body when you're hiking, which is great. It's so good for you. And it is really good. And so I think just get out there. Yeah.
And that's actually that out and back that you just mentioned, the 30 minutes out, 30 minutes back. That's
Mm.
actually how I started exploring local trails, because you get to a trailhead and you're intimidated because
Yeah.
you don't know what's around the corner. You have no idea
Yeah.
what you're getting yourself into.
Yeah.
And so I started by just like even 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, I'm going to go out for 15 minutes
Yeah.
and then I'm going to turn around and come back. Did that a few times and I said, you know what? Look at that. It wasn't
Mm.
so bad. And then you go a
Exactly.
little bit further and you get a little more daring and then you start researching and you learn a little bit more. And
Yeah.
so it's exactly like you said, it's those
Yeah.
baby steps. Just
Yeah.
start. do a little bit, see how you feel, start learning your distance. What
Yeah.
can you do?
Yeah.
If you're mostly sedentary and you normally only get maybe 5,000 steps in a day, maybe a 15-mile hike isn't a good idea. Maybe
Yeah.
start with two or
No.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think also that if you are going to start to learn about what you need to take, what you need to take back, that's going to be so important. And health and safety is so important. And maybe join a group. Facebook groups and meetup groups, they're abundant in the hiking community and they're so good. Other hikers, the hiking community really doesn't care if you've got two legs or six legs. They're so accepting, aren't they? They really
They
are
are.
accepting.
What's on your
Yeah.
bucket list? I know you're heading out somewhere. I want to hear about that. What's next?
Greece.
Greece.
Greece. Yes, yes, Greece. So we are going to land in Athens and then we're going to do the Long Pelion Trail, which is a brand new trail on the east coast of Greece and just north of Athens. And then we're going to go down to Crete and do the Cretan Way,
Wow.
which is part of the E4, which is a very long European trail that runs all the way from Bulgaria all the way to the south of Greece, which is
Really?
Crete. Yeah.
That sounds so
I
amazing.
know, I
There are
know.
so many amazing treks out there in the world.
Oh,
It's hard to pick.
yeah,
You
yeah,
just gotta, I don't know, just pick something and
yeah.
go. Right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And Europe is just full of amazing trails. And I think I know why too, because you were asking me about this before. Europe is so old, and a lot of these trails have been there for many years. New Zealand and Australia and North America are very new countries. And so a lot of the hiking trails aren't that old. With Europe, a lot of these trails could be old trade routes, or they could be trails which Europeans have been hiking them for maybe, I don't know, 100 years or 200 years, or as in the West Highland Way, some of those roads in Scotland are 400 years old. And a lot of the hikes actually do utilize old Roman roads.
Right.
And so they're very well established. Yeah, and there's so many of them. And Europe's very compact. There's so many hikes. It's just like this huge playground.
That's amazing and fantastic. So what do you think one small step our listeners could take this week if they wanted to start hiking and exploring nature? What do you think?
Okay, I would try and find a local park because even if you are living in the city, there are parks almost in every city, and try and find somewhere where there is a green belt and you can go and walk around in nature. It's not scary. There are lots of people on trails which are close to suburbia. And yeah, and just see how you go. And if you are nervous, take a friend or take a partner or
Or
take
find a
somebody.
meetup group.
Bye.
So where can we find Belinda and Soul Treader? You have a website. It's Soul and then
That's correct. Yes.
treader.com.
Yes. Yes.
And then if people want to contact you, they can contact you through your website. And you
Correct.
have, if someone subscribes to your page, if you have a subscription, is that how they would get your free download for the health and
Yes.
safety book?
Yes.
Or
I'll provide the link for
yes, please do.
Hike It Right. Yes, and
Hike
you
it.
just put your email in and you'll get the book. And
Oh, okay.
it's totally free. It's there as a health and safety resource. And I do have interactive packing lists on the site as well, and loads of information about different hikes, especially in Europe, and inn to inn and hut to hut, which are other types of hikes, which if you're just getting started, it's a great intro into hiking because a lot of these hut to hut and inn to inn hikes actually have luggage facilities as well. All you need to do is carry a day pack and you get to the hut or you get to the inn, the next inn, and your bag's there waiting. And all you need to do is,
That's such a fabulous service. I think it's great.
yeah,
And it's a great way to introduce people to
mm,
multi-day hiking without having to carry all that weight, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a mountain range system. We have a few of them here in the US, but there was one that I did last summer. It was called the San Juan Hut to Hut hike. And it's four
Mm,
huts spaced out about 7 or 8 miles per day,
Yeah.
and you hike from each hut to each hut.
Yeah.
And you didn't have to carry your bed because there was a bunk bed at the
Yeah.
hut.
Yeah.
They provided sleeping bags at the
Yeah.
hut, and then all your cooking equipment. So really all
Wow.
you had to carry was your food, and there was water sources at
Yeah.
each hut when you got to
Yeah.
each hut.
Yeah.
And what a great way to do a
Yeah.
hike without
Yeah.
carrying all that weight with you. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast with me today. This has been so much fun.
It was a
And so
pleasure.
when do you take off for Greece? You're leaving soon, right?
No, not until April.
April. Okay.
April. Yeah.
Yeah. And so where are you right now? Are you in Australia or?
No, I'm in England, but we are usually based in Scotland in our downtime when we're not hiking. But I've just been visiting a friend in England.
Oh,
So
nice.
yeah, yeah.
Nice. Well, thank you. And thank your friend for allowing you to take the
Oh,
time to be
thank you.
on chat with me today.
Yeah.
All right. It's been a
Okay.
pleasure, and I really enjoyed getting to know you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thank you for joining me on the Just Hyke podcast today. Remember, every step you take, no matter how small, is part of your journey from sidewalk to summit. I'm grateful you're here, growing, learning, and choosing to show up for yourself again and again. All right, before we go, don't forget to check out the Just Hyke Trailmate, the lightweight trail tool designed by a woman, me, for women, you, who hike with confidence. You'll find it at justhyke.com.